don't want to offend anyone, but I need to say it. I think Nightraign's too easy, and I think it needs to be harder. Now, let me explain my reasons, and you can give me your arguments in the comments. There's been some really juicy Nightraign news announced during the series of playtests that have been going on, and we've been bombarded with so many announcements and notifications that you may have missed some really important information about the future of Nightraign. So in this video, I wanted to take some time to share with you everything that's been confirmed so far for the release, along with everything else that we'll hopefully see based on the questions and answers I got from the preview event last month. For anyone that didn't know, I have played around 25 hours of Nightraign now, 15 hours during the playtests, with around another 10 at the preview event, and I've got some thoughts. This is, at its core, an absolutely incredible game, there's no doubt about it. I adore this game, and I am not concerned about the levels of fun that we will be having when we all get our hands on Nightraign. However, I am potentially concerned about the future and the longevity because of two very different reasons, both variety and difficulty. However, the devs might have already addressed our concerns without us even knowing. So let me now break down for you my top areas of interest that I hope will see some love between now and the full release at the end of May, along with all of the confirmation that we have already had so far. Before I jump into the first really important topic of communication, the footage you're seeing playing out in the background here perfectly evidences many of the points I'll be talking about in this video. This was an absolutely abysmal start to a match. We kept dying constantly. We're obviously not on voice comms because they hadn't been enabled yet. There's no communication of any kind. We are barely using pings. There are very few pings. We're all over the place. There is little teamwork. We are stuck outside of the ring for the majority of the game, and we barely make it to level 6 by the first boss. Yet somehow we still quite easily managed to beat the Nightlord. And I don't think this should have been the case, and I'll explain why this is so important in a bit. Firstly, as I've just said, communication. Communication is key, and if you don't have the luxury of a full pre-made team and voice comms, you're purely reliant on the ping system, which is giving it far too much credit calling it a system. It's literally just a ping. It's very, very subtle. There's no real notification that anyone has placed a ping, and most importantly, you have no idea why they are placing that ping. Are they saying there's a boss? Are they marking it purely for themselves? Are they telling you to go there now? Are they telling you to go there later? Are they marking some loot you should go and grab? Are they advising of something that you could go and do as a team or solo? And with no other way to communicate to your teammates, ideally this needs to be better. But I do potentially have some good news on this front. During the preview event, we were asked to provide our feedback, and one thing that pretty much everyone said is it would be great if there were more ways to communicate with your team in-game. Whether you could send 4 different types of pings by flicking the analog stick in each of the 4 different directions, like up for boss, down for loot, left for go here, right for a question, something like that. Or if there were some quick and easy audio statements that could be attributed to the pings, something like that. I'm not saying go over the top with it. You don't want it to be too intrusive and take away from the gameplay if you're trying to focus on a boss fight. But we were all very much of the same mentality that for the people who can't or don't want to use voice comms, there should be better inbuilt comms so that you can still feel like you're playing as a team rather than 3 individuals who just happen to be fumbling around together. And I feel like that's a sentiment that many of the community agree with. Next up, another system that has all but been confirmed is 2-player mode. Now, this is still up in the air. I'm not giving you definitive evidence that this is definitely happening. I don't know anything that you don't know. But what I can say is that the devs are very passionate to make sure Nightraign is the best product it can possibly be. They have heard feedback that quite a few people want 2-player mode, and they are investigating the possibility of putting it into the game. And I can give you another bit of information from my testing that all but confirms 2-player mode may very well in fact be in the official release of Nightraign. As I was playing a few matches earlier with a lovely YouTuber friend of mine, Zero Lenny, I unfortunately got disconnected from a game that we were in, and he was there just playing with a random, talking me through everything that was going on. And he said, "Dom, The Fellowman boss seems to be dying way quicker than I expected him to. So together we kept an eye on how much damage was being dealt to try and gain an estimate of how much health he had. And with two of them fighting him, the Night 2 Omen boss had around 18,000 health. Now, I jumped back in for the next game. Fortunately, we got to fight the Fellowman again, and this time there was all three of us. And he very clearly had double the health bar. It was closer to 40,000. It was very clearly double, because we were able to stack poison and rot on him, and when his health bar hit half, we had done about 20,000 damage to him, which outright killed him when there was only two of them. So enemy scaling already exists in the game, so there isn't too much work that needs to be done there. Some of the mechanics have already been implemented, and some of them do already work. Now, I don't know about things like damage scaling and whether runes or enemy spawns might also be affected. I'm sure there's lots of things they need to think about if they are to implement a two-player mode, but health scaling, that already exists, and that suggests to me that this was already on the cards. This is already something they've been thinking about. So very, very promising news there. Another point that it is very hard for me to be unbiased on and might cause a bit of controversy in the comments is the difficulty of the game. I will discuss this as fairly as I can, because as everyone here knows, if you know me, I am a huge advocate for enjoying the game however you want to enjoy it. I have never looked down on anyone for using summons or spirit ashes or cheesy mechanics, nothing like that. If that's how you want to play the game, that's exactly how you should be able to play the game. I personally like a challenge, that's why I've done loads of challenge runs. I love watching challenge runners, but I don't think everyone should have to play that way. That being said, don't want to offend anyone, but I need to say it, I think Nightraign's too easy, and I think it needs to be harder. Now, let me explain my reasons, and you can give me your arguments in the comments, and hopefully the right people will see this video, will listen to what I've got to say, will read what you've got to say, and something can be done about it for the final release. Let's start from the very start of day one. At this point in the game, your characters are as squishy as all hell, and pretty much every single thing in the game is going to kill you in 1 or 2 hits. At this point, until around the end of day 1, from level 1 to say level 8 or 9, I think the scaling is really good actually. I feel like the gameplay loop puts enough pressure on you that you feel a bit antsy and on edge, but in a really fun, really good way. I think day 1 is scaled perfectly. However, if you are in a half-decent team, by the time you get to start of day 2 and you're level 10, it is quite easy to actually max out your level before you even get to the Night 2 boss, or certainly by the time you beat it. And you're now all maxed out at level 15, with tens of thousands of runes left to spare, so you can just buy every single item from the merchant. You've got all 7 flasks, and at this point, it's pretty hard for Gladius to be able to do anything to you. But my suggestion isn't just to make the game more difficult, because I don't want to make it inaccessible for people. I know a lot of people like the difficulty, and they like that they can focus on the fun rather than having to sweat it out 24/7. But what I think would be quite a good compromise is have the enemies scale up from night 1 into day 2. Maybe everything gets, I don't know, like 30% extra health and attack. So now the challenge is still there, but you're a lot stronger, so the enemies have just scaled with you. Again, I'm literally just thinking off the top of my head, if the difficulty doesn't change and it stays exactly as it is, I still think it's absolutely great. I just feel like as a FromSoftware game and as an Elden Ring title, you could get away with making it harder. And ramping up the enemy scaling from night 1 into day 2 is one way you could potentially go about doing that. Though, that being said, I know a lot of people believe we are getting multiple maps at launch. So it could be that Gladius and Limvelt are like the tutorial map and the starter boss. So it might be that the other 7 Nightlords get progressively harder. In which case, everything I've just said is completely irrelevant, and I can shut the fuck up, because Gladius and this version of Limvelt are the only really easy maps in the game, and we'll have other maps and other bosses that just get tougher and tougher and tougher, and maybe that's how the difficulty will increase. I actually kind of hope that is the case, because I think that's an even better option than what I've just suggested. Because then, depending on the mood you're in, and depending on how hard of a challenge you want, you're like, okay, well, I will challenge the Nameless King boss, because he's one of the tougher ones, I'm really looking for a challenge. Or actually, I just want a cash day, I don't want to have to chat to anyone, I want to know that my team can win, even if I'm not on voice comms, so I'll challenge Gladius instead. So, we'll see. What are your thoughts on the difficulty? Genuinely am interested. How do you think it is difficulty-wise currently? And if you think it should change, what do you think should happen? Another big thing I really want to talk about is something that I feel like should already be implemented in the game and hopefully will be in at launch. And that is reconnecting back to a dropped session. Obviously, I appreciate this is currently the network test. It's going to happen far more now than it will at launch. But people sometimes have crappy internet. It happens. And if it would be feasible for them to add a reconnect button, I think that would make so many people happy. I think it would be a really cool addition to the game. Very simple little thing on the surface. God knows how confusing and hard that would be to actually implement for the developers. I have no idea. But I feel like a reconnect feature would make a world of difference and would really help some people make their decision with whether to grab this game or not. Next up, a really valid point that one of my friends made is about how beginner friendly and how accessible this game is. At the moment, it seems perfect, but what you have to think about is we're all currently learning together. We all know about as much as each other about the game, and that's somewhere around fuck all. So, but you've got to think, in a few months' time, when you and your two friends are really savvy, you know exactly where to go, you know exactly what to do, but only one of your friends can play. So now you have to play with a random. That random happens to only have picked up Nightrign for Christmas, and they have no idea how to play the game. Depending on the mood you're currently in, you might be the most chill person in the world, you're so up for carrying someone, let us take you under our wing, it's going to be awesome. But if you've had a crappy day and you don't want to have to do that, it is all too easy to accidentally get frustrated at this new player because you just want to play with people who know what they're doing and just get it done. And I know of a very easy way to stop this mentality, and it is simply by having more randomization in the game than we currently do. At the moment, Limveld only has 2 preset layouts. They're not that different from each other, and pretty much every single thing in the game is exactly where you expect it to be 100% of the time. And having this light of a level of randomization means it's going to be very quick and easy for people to create optimal pathing, which will shut newer players out of the game and will cause this divide and this potential animosity between the pros and the beginners. And a way to stop this is to have as much randomization as I was initially led to believe would be in this game. If camps are more randomized, and bosses and enemies and locations and churches and just the lot, then it means there won't really be that many optimal paths. You're all going to be relearning the map every single time. This would be taking a leaf out of the roguelikes book, and this mentality of all having to learn together with every single match means that new players won't be as shut out because they're not going to have to know all of the optimal paths before they even start playing the game. And even if you assume every single person who plays the game is the exact same skill level, I still feel like having more randomization is going to keep the game more fun and more fresh for longer. Remember, right at the start of the video, I said I only had 2 worries about the game, and that was variety and longevity. And both of these can be addressed by having more randomization. And the most important thing I wanted to talk about, and I actually wanted to throw the question and the knowledge gathering over to you to see if you may know something or have read something that I don't, because I have heard very many different stories on whether there will be multiple maps at launch. I was led to believe there is and will only ever be Limveld, at least until the DLC. But then obviously in the trailer, we saw that big spider, and we saw what looked like a very creepy, eerie, wooded area. And that certainly isn't anywhere to be seen in Limveld at the moment. Now, I've had some people telling me, oh, well, it's because this is going to be one of the random events. like the Fellowman tracking you down and the ants, but I feel like that might actually be a completely different map. In fact, I really hope it is. Again, for the replayability and the longevity of the game. And as I say, I've even had people telling me that each of the 8 Night Lords will have their own map, based on a different region in Elden Ring. So there'll be an Altus Plateau map, there'll be a Farum Azula map, there'll be a Mountaintops of the Giants map. I don't believe this. God, I hope it's true. But I don't think the game is going to be that massive. I think that would be an insane task. Especially at the price point. It's only about half of the cost of Elden Ring. So if they were to then put the entirety of Elden Ring in the game, they're kind of stitching themselves up. But what are your thoughts? Have you heard anything I haven't on map variety and this eerie wooded area with the giant spider boss? Do you know, is this going to be an event? Is this going to be its own map? Is it going to be a variation of Limveld? That's the one thing that's super up in the air at the moment for me. And I think if we did have more clarification on this, it would help a lot of people who haven't yet decided whether they want to buy the game or not make that decision. Though, in conclusion, the TLDR is Nightraign is incredible. It's half the price of a full game, but it is a full game. So if you are on the fence, I urge you to get it. It's one of the most fun times I have had in a video game for so long. And if they can make even 1 or 2 of the small tweaks I've talked about in this video, then it would just take it to the next level and it would be even better. As I say, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and if you would like to guarantee that I reply to you personally and directly, join the Discord server and feel free to @ me in the Nightraign channel. I respond to as many comments as I can on YouTube, but I'm a lot more active in my Discord. That's where we can all group up and play some games together as well. And with that, my friends, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.